Okay, good afternoon everybody and welcome to this media conference with Gareth, Southgate and Jordan Henderson to preview tomorrow's Alzheimer's Society International against Switzerland at Wembley. We'll shortly start with Rob Dorset from Sky Sports News before opening up to those joining us on Zoom. So Rob, when you're ready.
Thanks, Andy. Gareth, good to see you. Jordan, likewise.
Hi.
Gareth, if I could start with you. You've had some more withdrawals. Bukayo Saka has gone. Others have missed training. Emil Smith-Rowe and Raheem Sterling missed a couple of training sessions as well while he was in Jamaica. So where are you with the squad right now? Update us.
Well, as has been reported, Emil didn't train today, so I would think unlikely he'll be involved tomorrow. Nothing too serious, but we'll check to see whether he can be involved tomorrow. Raheem's absolutely fine. Yeah, it was a shame to lose Bukayo, but we're back in those moments, aren't we, with COVID, where there is a spike in the country, and we've had the same.
Because of those absences, can we assume that three of the debutants, at least one of them, is going to make their debut tomorrow?
Yeah, there'll be definitely. We're going to have debuts this week for sure, whether that's tomorrow or Tuesday. So yeah, great moments for those players, and we will always want to put them in with experienced players as well, so that we've got a good balance and it gives them the best chance of succeeding.
There were some incredible scenes in Cardiff last night. I'm sure you saw them. Scotland have still got to play their playoff as well, but it's looking good for another of the home nations to be potentially alongside you in Qatar. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I was watching Portugal and Italy really. So, but I think Robert Page has done a brilliant job, very good, and that they've obviously still got another step to go. But yeah, very good result. Austria are a good team.
Italy won't be there. I mean, what do you make of the fact that the team that ruined the dream for you in summer and won the Euros has now missed consecutive World Cup finals? It's almost unthinkable, isn't it?
Well, it's a big surprise. I think it's clear that sometimes teams have a cycle, and whether that was the cycle or whether the after effects of the final and the emotion of it and everything else, I think that's where our players did so well, to recover from the emotion of the final and then to perform as they did in the autumn was absolutely fantastic. I think easily underestimated. I think qualifying always is anyway, but so I suspect, looking at the results and the performances the way they went, and Italy were in that position, but also they were fine margins in 3 or 4 of their games, and that's football.
Jordan, if I can switch across to you, was there a wry smile on your face when you saw that Italy hadn't made it and had lost to North Macedonia?
Not really, to be honest. Not really interested, concentrate on what we need to do and the teams that will be in the World Cup. But I think that what that does show is how difficult qualification can be. I think sometimes you take that for granted and it's like expected that you qualify every time for a World Cup or a Euros. So that's proof to show that if you're not 100% at it, then you can be punished.
I need to ask you, Jordan, about the issue of human rights, which you guys have discussed as a group this week. Harry Kane spoke really well on it the other day when we asked him about it. He said he feels conflicted over playing in the country because he's aware of some of the abuses. How do you feel about it? Would you personally want to maybe protest against some of the abuses out there? Have you had a chance to give it any more thought?
Well, yeah, I'd probably reiterate on what Harry has said the other day. I thought, like you said, he spoke very honestly about it, and we've been briefed this week, which is really important, on the issues that are currently happening there and that have happened over the last few years. So for us as a team, we've just sort of digested that, coming up with ideas what we want to do going forward. Because at the same time, it's an opportunity to maybe shine a light on the issues that are there. And how can we sort of make change for the better and use our platforms to do that. So yeah, we're speaking as a team, we've had conversations, but we don't want to rush into anything. It's been a few days since we've been briefed properly with the research that the FA have done. So yeah, we'll keep continuing to speak, and hopefully in the future we'll come up with something that we want to do as a team.
Gareth, back to you on that same issue, if that's okay. Look, I'm conscious that we try not to ask you about this subject every time we see you, because it's a really important one, but you know, you're an England football manager, you can't control these matters. But what do you see as the next step here from you and the squad? You've discussed it, you've got some ideas. Does this move on to the June camp now, and then you think of maybe practical ways that you can protest or that sort of thing?
Well, I think the conversations with the players the other day were very important. You know, we were trying to reduce an enormous amount of information into the key areas and allow the players then some time to think, and I think that's provoked a lot of conversations between them and amongst players and staff. So I think they're thinking through how do they best respond, how do they try to affect the things that we might be able to affect. And I think, again, I repeat, I think there are some things that are cultural and religious that are going to be very difficult to affect and change. But there's an opportunity to use the voices and use the platform in a positive way, without a doubt. There's a long period in order to do that, so I don't think we should rush into that, and I don't think the players feel they could rush something out and not quite come to the right conclusion or the right idea. And I repeat, I think whatever we do, we're going to be criticised. So we're going to try and do our best. We're going to, we're back out to Qatar for the draw. And from an FA perspective, that means more chances to meet people on the ground. And there are workshops regarding these issues, human rights issues, around that draw as well, which we've got people attending. So there is going to be things ongoing throughout the year. And I think the players have stepped up to the plate enormously on various issues. This week alone, we've got tomorrow's game dedicated towards the Alzheimer's Society. Tuesdays is obviously towards people in Ukraine. So, you know, we've got to use our voice in the right way at the right time. But of course, there are lots of other issues as well that we're all dealing with. And
last one from me. Do you see this as something that the players choose and they drive it now that you've given them the information, or will you and the FA try and steer them down a certain path?
I think there's a combination of the two, really, because nobody's in disagreement about the things that are happening and the things that are unacceptable, and the things that we'd like to help change. I always think it would be dangerous for the FA. You know, the FA have never stopped anybody speaking about these matters, and it would be dangerous for us to be telling the players what to do in something like this. I think they've got their own thoughts, their own minds. They're bright people. They've made a brilliant impact in other areas. Equally, there's power in us being able to do something together, or maybe even with some of the other European nations, or whatever that might look like. So there's conversations going on all the time in the background, and it would be wrong to say we're just pushing things to one side. It's frankly, we're talking more about it than many other things. So, but I agree. I think the players have got a good voice. We should allow them to come up with their ideas. If we can support that and help shape that, then we also want to do that.
Thank you, Rob. Next we'll go to Kerry Brown of Bein Sport.
Thank you. Jordan, you've actually lifted a trophy in Qatar at the Club World Cup, and Liverpool fans travelled, enjoyed it, and went from the LGBT plus community. What was your experience of that tournament, both as a player, and would it be sad for the fans to believe they couldn't come from the LGBT plus community? Because I've got friends in the LGBT plus community who are coming to me saying, I don't think I can travel, I don't think it's safe. The organisers are trying to reassure people that it is safe, and while we can push for an understanding of that situation more, what was your understanding of how that tournament went for the Liverpool fans and for you as a player?
Yeah, when we went and played there in the FIFA World Cup, as far as I'm concerned, there was no issues. I mean, we were only there, I think, maybe a week tops, few days, a couple of games, but yeah, everything was fine with accommodation, you know, stadiums were good. Yeah, everything went pretty smoothly, to be honest. There was no issues in terms of crowd and the Liverpool supporters that I know of. So from my experience of being there, everything was okay.
And in terms, you said you're discussing about how you could maybe put forward protests or suggestions on what changes you would like to see. Have you discussed, can you give us any insight on what that might be?
No, because it's very early discussions. But as a senior member of the squad, I do take a lot of responsibility, and I'll try my best to speak with other players, as will other senior members of the team, and come up with something that we all think is right. I think the gaffer's right. I think whatever we decide to do as a team will be criticised and will be never enough. But that's not why we do it. We do it to try to make a difference in the world for a positive change, and what we think is right as a team. I think everybody knows that we stand for no discrimination. Football is for everyone, and we'll always stand by that, and we'll push that in whichever way we decide going forward.
How difficult was that during the Euros when you had ministers going up against you about taking the knee, and how much satisfaction have this group of players taken from how much you can change in terms of perspective?
Yeah, I think, again, taking the knee is a big thing and a big talking point still, and that's great. You know, it sparks conversation all the time, and we always want change, we always can do better. So that's one example that I think we've handled really well. I think at the beginning, people were questioning why we carried on doing it. And at the beginning, I could hear fans in the UK booing when we were doing it. And now I don't hear any, you know, I hear cheers all the time. So I feel as though we've made positive change in a very short space of time. But there's still a long way to go, still a lot of work to be done. And we'll continue doing that as a team and individuals as well.
There will be quite a lot of talk around Italy, I would imagine. The fact that they've managed to fail to qualify for 2 World Cups now in between winning the Euros, does that make you look ahead to this draw and really appreciate what this team have achieved, reaching a semi-final and then a European final? Does that prove the consistency is that you can be champions, or maybe is it a warning for complacency?
I think consistency is key in any great team. You know, all the best teams, if you look back over the years, consistently winning all the time. You know, it's a different challenge all the time, and you haven't won so much. You know, the desire to go and win is huge. You know, but then it's a different challenge when you get over the line. You end up winning a big trophy. It's a different challenge for the next year, and yeah, I think the best teams cope with that in the best way. With Italy, they're a fantastic side, as they proved in the Euros. But you know, different challenges come after that. The emotional element around it after winning such a big tournament. You know, qualification's never easy, as we're seeing last night. And you need to be 100% on it all of the time. And if you're not, you can get punished. So I'm sure they'll learn a lot from the experience that they've had over the past year after the Euros, and probably be better for it.
Gareth, how are the team all engaging? A lot of young faces, a big representation from Crystal Palace, huge recognition for everything that Patrick Vieira is doing there. How have the Crystal Palace players been engaging with this squad?
I think they found it very easy to settle in. This group of players, the senior players in particular, I think they create an environment that puts young players at ease, and that's important. We've always wanted that. I think they can be as close to their best as possible if that's the case. And I know that I was talking with Fraser Forster last night, who obviously hasn't been with us for a while, but he recognised that in this particular group. So it means that when they're on the training pitch, they can be themselves and they can take on board the information that they need to fit into the tactical system as well.
Mark Gahey, a lot of suggestions that he could be the next off the rank as a regular centre-back for England. How's he engaged with the team? What's he shown to you?
Yeah, we've seen in all of the players that have come in, Mark, Conor Gallagher, Kyle Walker-Peters, Tyrick Mitchell, we've seen what we've seen with their clubs, and they're showing that on the training pitch. So the key now is to just take what you do on the training pitch and with your club into the matches, and that's always the transfer that's most interesting for us to watch.
Unfortunately, you had so many options, but you've been beset with quite a few injuries and pull-outs. What's been the big challenge for you naming this starting 11, and what's the one thing you'll be looking for ahead of this draw?
Well, always performance. You know, we want good performances, consistent performances, like Jordan just mentioned. We're used to having to be adaptable and make changes, so that doesn't worry us. Normally, whichever team we put out, we get a consistent level from the players, and that's huge credit to them. So when you lose players, it's something that we sit and mope around. It's just, okay, what's the best solution, and how do we adjust to the changes that we've got to make. And we'll do that for tomorrow and for Tuesday. It's an opportunity for everybody to get on the pitch.
You've shown great faith in players from Luke Shaw to Jordan Pickford and most recently Harry Maguire, who haven't been performing at club level but have been exemplary for you. Do we assume Harry Maguire starts for this encounter, and how's he been in training this week?
Well, I'm not going to start giving the team, because I never do, so it wouldn't be right to start that process. Look, training has been good. Very pleased with the training. I think the players have enjoyed coming back together. They've enjoyed being with their England teammates. It's a psychological refresh before they go back into another important period with their clubs. And we're enjoying working with them again.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, we have time for a couple of more, starting with Alex Howell of the BBC.
One question for Jordan, please. Harry Kane said he'd speak to other captains in the Spurs team because they're leaders at national level, and other Premier League captains. So as a Premier League captain, do you think it'd be a powerful thing to do to have a unified approach to Qatar and the human rights?
Yeah, that has been mentioned. As the gaffer said, there's possibility of doing something with other European countries. We've got a couple of captains in the Liverpool dressing room, like Virgil, Robbo as well, captain of Scotland. So, I'm sure we can have them conversations. I can speak to them. Harry will be speaking to other captains across Europe as well, I'm sure. So, that'll be part of the conversation and part of the process that we'll go through to basically determine what we want to do as a team or teams together.
And for Gareth, please, Carl Walker-Peters spoke at the media day about how Ralph Hasenhüttl spoke to him about his versatility. We've seen Kieran Trippier be very useful for you in the England squad and playing in different positions. How important is it for a player like Carl to be able to slot in different places into this team?
Well, the key to begin with is to be able to be excellent in one position, first and foremost. Clearly, we don't know the size of the squad yet that's going to be required next winter, but if that's 23, then there's an even bigger emphasis on players that perhaps can be adaptable and play in one or two or three different roles, and we've got a few players in the squad that can do that. So it's always helpful. It gives you another opportunity to be selected at whatever level you're playing at.
And just to follow up to Bukayo and pulling out, because he tested positive, I was wondering, are there any follow-up tests you're having to do, or any players waiting for more tests to come back because of close contacts or things like that?
No, I mean, I'm lost on the rules, really, so I can't sit and give you a medical download of all of that. I'm not quite sure why he's out, because I think you can carry on now with normal life, but also I think people have an ethical responsibility, if they're positive, to stay away from others and stop the spread of the virus. So, but I think by the normal rules of life, he could carry on. I think the football rules are a bit different, but I'm in a maze of confusion, frankly.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Alex. And we'll finish with James Ollie of ESPN.
Hi to you both. Gareth, can I just clarify one thing on Qatar? Have you and the players or the FA actually discussed boycotting the tournament at any stage, or is that sort of off the table?
Well, I don't really know what that achieves. I mean, it of course would be a big story, but this tournament would go ahead, and the fact is, unfortunately, the biggest issue probably that is non-religious and non-cultural is what happened with the buildings of the stadiums, and there's nothing we can do about that either, sadly. So Yeah, look, I think as soon as we've entered the tournament, that's the point at which you decide whether, you know, we've known for 4 years or 8 years that this is going to be in Qatar. And is the stance against Qatar as a country, if that was the case? What would be your question would be that we should be protesting against Qatar as a country, or the specific issue? Because if it's Qatar as a country, then we're intertwined, as we're seeing with what's happening with Russia, with all sorts of investment in our country. Sainsbury's, are we all going to stop shopping at Sainsbury's as a protest against Qatar? The Shard, there's all sorts of property investment. So we're in such a complex world of deals, as we've seen with Saudi Arabia recently. You know, on the one hand, people are saying about the investment in Newcastle, on the other we're going and asking them to reduce the oil prices so that we can get our petrol cheaper. So I think we're all observing these things, and we're all in a state of, well, this is really difficult and entwined. That's why I said before Christmas, this is complicated. I know the issues themselves aren't complicated, but all of the repercussions of diplomatic relations and dealing with other countries and dealing with other organisations, they are extremely complicated, I think.
So from the way you're talking, the idea that this school of thought that you could just boycott it and that would sort of be a solution to this is almost a too simplistic way of looking at it, really.
Well, it's possible, but I don't think that's a decision that the players and myself firstly can make. And I know I hear various versions of this, but my understanding is that the discussions the FA have had with organisations like Amnesty International is that they feel that there would be more change if we go and these things are highlighted. So, you know, I think that is also guiding some of the thinking on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, James. We'll wrap it up there. Thanks for joining us this afternoon.